Hello, brothers and sisters. This has been quite the election. One for the ages, will be talked about for generations, no doubt. It has been chaotic and messy. The lawyers have been brought in, which personally I am thankful for. But nevertheless, someone will win. We may not know till early next week, even after, but there will be a victor. Regardless of who wins, something has been true in this nation for a long time now, is especially shown in the last decade, during this pandemic, and now this election. And that is America is losing its splendor. America is losing its beauty. We have an ugliness problem in our country, and it is exemplified by people on both sides of the aisles. On one, it's more of a personal behavior and holiness issue. On the other side, it's the overt celebration of the things that God calls evil. Both contribute to the ugliness of this nation. Our founding fathers knew that if we were going to be a free people who could self-govern, it was contingent on us being a virtuous and moral and God-fearing people, right in the Declaration of Independence. From George Washington to John Jay to Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, there are quotes abounding from many others too about how we must be a virtuous and moral and God-fearing people if we are able to enjoy self-government and the fruits of freedom and liberty. The entire purpose of Christ's church is to be a set-apart people, holy and above reproach, virtuous and moral, so that we can be the salt and the light to the world. Yes, we offer grace and mercy. That is what we preach in salvation in Christ. But we are called to a higher character, to a love of obedience to our Father and of duty to our neighbors. We are the ones who are supposed to know the true meaning of liberty, justice, rule of law, and the role of authorities in society and in institutions. We are supposed to educate and build for our neighbor societies and institutions that hold those things dear. And it has become abundantly clear through this pandemic and this election and many other things, but especially the pandemic, that the church has lost its salt and its light. Through the response to social situations which have been largely unbiblically and very poor from the church, to heresies that have completely perverted the gospel in the highest echelons of the Reformed Church, and arguments against candidates who in fact would stand for the very things that God holds dear to his heart. The church has lost its salt and its light. And what happens when a church, or the church, loses its salt and its light and fails in its duty to its neighbors? God sends tyranny and anarchy. We as Christians are very good about running around telling people that Jesus is on the throne, God is sovereign, everything's in his control. The flip of a coin is within his command. But we're not so good at going around talking about the tenets of Jesus, the very things that build a society that is well organized and fruitful and flourishing on the principles of liberty, James 1:25, justice, Leviticus 19:15, a passage dedicated to loving our neighbors, and the role of authorities in Romans 13 and other verses, and sound money practices discussed all throughout the Bible. Jesus was on the throne during the Holocaust. Jesus was on the throne when Russians were rounded up and put in gulags. Jesus was on the throne during the Rwandan genocide. Pick your mass murder situation. Jesus was on the throne, running around telling people that God is sovereign and exists, does not solve the evil that is occurring against our neighbors. That is the duty of the church. And this is the duty that has been lost upon the church. If we want to do our duty to God and our neighbor and love them with the love that Christ sent us out to love them with, which is, of course, the gospel message and eternal salvation, and then defense of them in this life for temporal liberty, justice, rule of law, so that they can be at peace and flourish to the best that we can give them. That is our duty to our neighbor. Regardless of who wins this election, it is the church's duty to get back to this. Before God, we are obligated to get back to these principles. If America is going to be returned to her beauty and splendor and the ugliness is going to go away, the church has to find itself again. And it starts from within. Every single one of us in the church has to be a part of this. We have to study these topics. We have to understand these topics. We are supposed to judge angels someday. How are we going to judge angels if we can't properly educate our neighbors about true justice, justice that is impartial to wealth or race or anything, about true liberty and what it means to live as God designed us to live, about the role of authorities to be terrors to evildoers. That is our role as the church. And the tyranny and anarchy will not just go away. We, the church, have to push it away. We have to be the salt and the light that pushes it back, much like our Puritan forefathers did for us. We have to find our duty to God and our country again. Let's get busy. We're in this together. Thank you for listening.